everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Ontario Cycling Women's Comfort and just kind of all things chat. I'm super excited to be here talking to everyone. For those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Molly Hurford. I've been a cyclist and a cycling journalist for going on 15 years now. And when I first got into cycling, I was just getting into triathlon. That was sort of my thing. And it was probably a year and a half of racing triathlon and being like a pretty serious cyclist where I didn't even have any idea that bike shorts were a thing. I was one of those triathletes that started out, seeing triathletes racing in swimsuits. So for the first year and a half of riding, I basically wore either a swimsuit or just regular run tights because no one really talked to me about what actually makes cycling more comfortable. So I had a very uncomfortable introduction to cycling. Then I eventually found cyclocross and just absolutely fell in love with it as a sport. And luckily found myself on a team of wonderful guys who eventually gave me my first pair of bike shorts. And I found myself writing about bikes. And as I was writing more and more about bikes and talking to more people at races and getting more invested in cyclocross and road and mountain biking, I started realizing a lot of women came into cycling the same way I did, where not a lot of people were mentioning, oh, here's a cycling chamois, here's how you wear it, here's chamois cream, here's here's the thing about bike fit, here's the thing about, I don't know, pumping your tires once in a while, even when they're not flat yet. People just don't necessarily think to share that information. It's not that we're hiding it, we just don't think to share it once we learn it. So I actually had a lot of women coming up to me and asking me to share this information. They'd come up to me on races and ask about what the deal with, why we're wearing skin suits or how to deal with a saddle sore, or on a couple of really awkward occasions, pulling down their shorts and being like, do you know what this is? And no, I'm not a doctor. But I realized there just wasn't anyone talking about it. So here I am. I had started talking about it. So, fast forward a few years later, I have my lovely book, Saddle Sore, that's all about all of the awkward questions. Highly recommend for any new riders, or if you know a new rider who's very shy, giving them this book as a resource is a great way to politely, teach them about not wearing underwear with bike shorts without actually having to have that conversation. So I've been kind of answering all of these awkward questions about fit and chafing and numbness and soreness and, difficulty in the saddle for the past 10 years. And I've heard and seen it all at this point. So today I'm kind of here just to talk about a few of my basic tips for saddle comfort, just how to make our rides feel better, because, the most important thing is that we deserve to have a really fun, comfortable ride. Bikes should not feel bad. Obviously none of us are going to feel wonderful after like 5 hours on the bike, but we should definitely be able to be pretty comfortable for a couple of hours on the bike. So we are here to talk all about that. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat. You can either just send it to everyone, or you can send it to me privately if it's kind of an awkward question that you're not super comfortable sharing with the group. And if you think of anything afterwards, I'll just remember to plug myself right now. You can find me over at consummateathlete.com. That's where I have a podcast where I talk about all things endurance sport with my husband, cycling coach Peter Glassford. We're right up in Collingwood. He does amazing bike skills stuff, and we run a lot of camps and clinics as well. So definitely feel free to check that out and get in touch. So without further ado, let's talk about saddle sores and other awkward questions. This illustration here, by the way, is from my fictional series, Shred Girls, which is books all about getting young girls excited about bikes. Picture the Babysitters Club, but with bikes, not babysitting. But that's a whole other talk for a different time. How do I get to my next slide? Okay. First thing to talk about, we are women. We are not men. We are not Barbies. Obviously, we are not men. We do not have those parts, and we are not Barbies. And by Barbies, I mean, I don't know if any of you remember playing with Barbie dolls when you were kids, but Barbie dolls were just flat, right? Like you took off their pants to change them and there was nothing there. As women, we have folds, we have parts. So when we're sitting down on a saddle, it is not just like a Barbie sitting on a saddle there. It's, a lot of stuff going on. So this is just something I always start with is just, what works for you isn't going to work for the next person. What works for your husband, boyfriend, brother, whatever, dad, etc., is not necessarily going to work for you. Just because your boyfriend says this is the saddle that you should get doesn't mean it's actually going to be the right saddle for you. So just keep in mind that we have our own unique individual experiences. They're all different from each other. So what one person says is like the way to do a thing is not necessarily 100% the way that one must do things. Okay. Before we get too far south, though, I want to talk about breathing issues on the bike. And this is something that I have now seen with so many women of all ages. I was lucky enough to coach a lot of cycling camps, and one of them I was coaching a lot of young riders, and we were in Spain for a few weeks for this endurance camp. And I started noticing, even on day one, that a lot of these girls were struggling so hard on hills, and they were completely fit, like functioning cyclists, great cyclists, but they were just having the hardest time. So one of them had actually stopped on the hill, and I rolled up next to her, and, she's just struggling so hard to catch her breath, but her breathing is so shallow. And as we're talking through it, I suddenly realized she's wearing, a super tight heart rate strap around her rib cage. She's wearing a super compressive sports bra. She's wearing a tight base layer. She's wearing bib shorts that have a front to them. She's wearing a tight jersey. She's wearing a tight vest over it, and wondering why she's struggling to breathe. And this is, I'd say, more typical with younger girls, because younger women tend to be pretty like into the size of things. So, you go to Lululemon and you want to get the sports bra in a 4, not a 6, because heaven forbid. So, we're buying based on the number instead of on the actual comfort. But oh my gosh, so we unzip the vest, we unzip the jersey just a little bit, and suddenly she can get up the hill without a huge issue. And I was just amazed at what a difference it made when she could actually expand her rib cage and breathe. And I think we are so used to, how do I say this, battening down the hatches that we end up with these very tight, very compressive fits on our tops, on our chests. So when we're on the bike and we're bent over in like a fairly awkward position, we can't really expand our rib cage, expand our lungs to get our breath. So I've now added this as part of my talk. I just think it's so important. Just make sure that when you're on the bike, you are perfectly capable of taking a very full, very deep breath. We also want to be breathing from our bellies, and that's another whole thing. But really just making sure that your rib cage is not being constricted by a super tight sports bra, heart rate monitor, etc. Cycling is such a layer intensive sport with clothing that I think it's not even necessarily that just the sports bra is tight. It's that everything on top of it is compounding it and compounding it and compounding it until now we're just, these little tightened like shells of ourselves. So just make sure you're, nice and comfortable up top. Cool. All right. Now let's get into saddle choice. We have an excellent question about bike fit. We will definitely get into, but we'll start with the first point of connection here. So we have the saddle. This is like our main point of connection with the bike. So it is very important. I should point out the saddle is not for sale. This is like an art installation, but I feel like it is a very accurate art installation. Anyway, our bike saddles. First thing first, the saddle that comes on your bike is not the saddle that has to stay on your bike. And a lot of us fall into the category of people who buy the bike and assume that the saddle on the bike is the right saddle for them. This is not the case. The saddle that comes on the bike is the saddle that's been picked because it is basically the cheapest saddle that the company could get away with that particular bike. And it's the most generic size that exists for that bike and generic fit that exists for that bike. So it's the most common, it's set to the most common sit bone width, common length, and what the most generally comfortable type of saddle it is. So if it's a cutout or if it's just got like a little dip or if it's completely flat, it's just designed like that's the most popular with that bike. But that doesn't mean it's the best one for that bike. like far from it. Definitely doesn't mean it's the best one for you. So when we're thinking about our saddle, the first thing we're thinking about is our saddle width. And this is one of those things that a lot of people don't think about or don't really comprehend. You go into the store and typically you have maybe 2 or 3 sizes of saddles. You've got like your small, medium, your medium, large, and your large, extra large. And if you're a bigger person, you're probably like, oh, I'll get the large, extra large. If you're a small person, you're probably like, oh, I'll get the small, no problem. That makes perfect sense. However, your sit bones have absolutely nothing to do with your size. I always say I'm, 5'4", pretty small person. My dad is like 6 foot, probably like 275, like big guy. We have the exact same size sit bones. It's just a measurement of your bones. Men actually tend to have slightly narrower sit bones than women. We tend to have wider sit bones. Does not have any bearing on how big or small you are as a person. It is just a measurement of these bones. So how do you know what sit bone size you have? Well, you go into the store and I just like saying, ask for the assometer, not what it's actually called, but they'll probably know what you're talking about. And it's a gel pad that most shops have. And you sit down on this gel pad and you shake your butt a little bit. And then when you stand up, you actually have 2 little indentations where your sit bones are, and they measure between them. And that measurement is how you know how wide you want the back of your saddle to be. So this is a super important measurement, because if your saddle is too wide, so if it's wider than your sit bones, as you pedal, every time you pedal, think about that pedaling motion, your sit bones are sliding in just a little bit on each other, just a tiny bit, just enough to be a little uncomfortable, cause some awkward chafing. If the saddle's too small, if your sit bones are wider, then as you're pedaling away, your sit bones are rocking from side to side, which not only causes chafing, it's actually also causing your very sensitive tissues to be pressing down real hard on that saddle. So we want a saddle width that is just right for us, for our specific sit bones. Your best friend might weigh the same as you, be the same height as you, have the exact same body type as you, still have different sit bones. You might have the same ones, don't know, but definitely worth checking. Don't just assume your sit bone size. The other thing that can completely change comfort is how long the saddle is. There's no good measure for how long you want your saddle to be. So from like the back of it to the front of the nose, there's no like way to measure or something for that. But the more you try different saddles, the more you'll start to realize which ones feel more comfortable for you. And a lot of it's going to depend on how you sit on the bike, how your pelvis tilts on the bike. Really, like there's no perfect, like, oh, this is exactly how you sit. This is exactly the type of saddle you want to get. It's a lot of just trial and error. The only thing that we really know for sure is like sit bone width. That's sort of your like one line in the sand. That's the one thing you start from. Some women really like men's saddles. Some men really like women's saddles. Doesn't totally matter. Some people love that cutout, that hole in the saddle, because they find that actually gives them a lot of relief. They don't have as much pressure on their sensitive tissues down there. Some people, the cutout actually, because of how everything is positioned, catches things in an uncomfortable way. Some people like the divot. Some people find the divot makes them go numb. It's really, you're just going to have to trial a few saddles before you find what works perfectly for you. And unfortunately, from bike to bike, it could be different. The saddle that feels really comfortable on the road might not be quite as comfortable on really shaky gravel, or, when you're mountain biking and you're standing up more and then sitting down abruptly. So you might need to try different saddles for different bikes. You might find that a saddle that sucked on your road bike is actually great on your mountain bike. So a lot of playing around, give a saddle a couple rides before you commit to it. And a lot of bike shops will take saddles back. They have saddle libraries. It's always worth going in and seeing if you can demo a saddle. A lot of the time they are more than happy to, or at like minimum, some of them will have a bike that happens to have that saddle on it, or they can put that saddle on a test bike and you can just take it out and get a sense of whether or not it's like okay, or if it's absolutely terrible. So saddle choice, it takes a while. And I will also add, so the best saddles I've had have not been the most expensive, carbon fiber, everything. There's really no matching fit and comfort with price point. So don't feel like you need to get the super expensive one. You might find the super expensive one is great. fantastic, but don't feel like, oh, it's expensive, so it must be good. And actually, let's kind of touch on this bike fit, because we did get a question about that. Okay, so this particular question is tall, long legs, body, arms. So tall person, women's bikes not for me, so I buy men's bikes, which never fit right either. Oof, yeah. Bike fit is it's tricky. There's not like an amazing answer that I have for this, other than there's a lot of tweaking that can be done within a bike. So if you get the bike off the shelf, like I said about the saddle, okay, we can change our saddles. There are also a lot of other things we can change in addition to just moving the seat up and down and forward and backward. We can also, add some spacers to the headset and bring our headset up a little bit. We can even, get a different cockpit and bring our handlebars a little bit further out. We can change our crank arm length so that our legs, even though the bike stays the same height, our legs actually are traveling like more or less because our crank arms are shorter or longer. So there's all of these like small little things that you can tweak on a bike that we tend to kind of gloss over. And most people, when they talk about bike fit, are just talking about the saddle and, wanting to make sure that the saddle is at a height that lets you get almost straight leg at the very bottom of the pedal stroke, and where your knee is kind of tracking over your big toe when it's fully like 3 degrees, or three at 3 when you have your feet at 3 and 9 p.m. 3 and 9, you want your knee to be just a little bit over your ankle. There are sort of these like normal things that we say about saddle height, but we rarely talk about the difference between if you're on a bike and you're sitting like this, or if you're sitting like this, right? Like that's the thing that we can adjust with the handlebars by adding, a different stem to them. And that's going to completely change how my body is angled. It's going to completely change the tilt of my pelvis. It's going to change how I'm pedaling. All of these things are affected just by me rolling a little bit more forward, me rolling up a little bit. If I add a couple spacers, now I'm sitting a bit more upright. So now suddenly I'm actually taking some of the weight off of my pelvis, off of my sensitive tissue, and I'm putting a little bit more onto more like the back of my sit bones. And that's also completely changing, again, the way I pedal. My feet are going to be a little bit further forward than they would have been if I had been back down. So all of these like little teensy things with our upper body are going to have a huge impact on how our lower body is feeling and the level of comfort. So, unfortunately, sometimes you might be on the wrong bike, but sometimes it's also just a matter of going and getting a professional bike fit. And I will add, not all fitters are created equal. And unfortunately, getting fit in a studio sometimes feels great in the moment, or you're kind of like gaslit into thinking it feels great. I don't know how many of you have had this happen where you go in for a bike fit and the person is like, I changed this. Doesn't it feel better? And you kind of automatically are like, I guess, like, you don't really know if it feels better. You don't really feel a difference, but you feel like the guy wants you to say it. So getting a bike fit, super helpful, but don't feel like what they say is the be all end all. You can always go back and say, hey, this didn't work right. Like, can we, do another tweak to it? If the bike fitter you did last time did not nail it, totally fine to go to a different one. Often it's better to get a second opinion. Okay. What is wrong if I have a lot of pressure on my hands? Okay. Great question. A couple things. My first thought would be that it's potentially possible that your saddle is a little bit high and it's causing you to just put a little more pressure forward because you're kind of leaned a bit more forward. If your saddle height is okay, it could also just be that you're putting a lot of pressure in your hands because you're trying to take some pressure off of your more sensitive tissue. So you're actually like pushing down into the handlebars to try to alleviate some of the pressure that's on that lower region. So those are two sort of somewhat reasons. The other thing could actually be, and I'm not sure which kind of bike we're talking, if we're talking road bike, that tends to also be, sometimes the pressure can just be because of your hand position, where you have the handlebars set and where you have the shifters and the grips. It might be that grips are tilted up slightly so that your hands are actually at like kind of an awkward angle that's forcing them to be pressed against it. I would be playing around with where road bike, perfect. So I'd be playing around with where those grips are and trying to make it so my hands are a little bit more straight rather than shifted up, because sometimes when they're up, we're kind of really pressing in. Hand numbness is a super, super common problem, but it's one that just shouldn't be the case. That's something that we can definitely fix with bike fit. It could also be that you're stretching so far forward that, you're kind of forced to almost like really press on because you're worried, like you're almost like falling. So definitely looking at how that fits. I'd probably want to see, I kind of need to see a picture to give you any like super good judgment on that. But getting a bike fit's super helpful. And if numbness is at all part of the equation, also checking if you're wearing gloves, making sure that they're not like digging into your hand. Cause I've actually had a lot of people say that they realized the gloves that they were wearing actually were what was causing a lot of their pressure or numbness issues. Just because of the way it was like making them grip the bars or the way it was cutting into them. So they were getting numb hands from that. But yes, numb hands are something that we should definitely work on, or a lot of pressure on our hands is something that we should definitely work on, because that means that somewhere down the chain, something else isn't really working. And the last thing that it could possibly be is just a little bit of core strength. And again, I don't know, I don't know you personally or anything, but a lot of the time when we're having trouble with putting a lot of pressure on our hands, part of it is because we're actually just letting our core sort of not do any work. We're taking that kind of out of the equation, and then our arms are forced to do, our hands are forced to like do that. But if you think about having that nice firm stomach, sort of like you would when you're doing a plank, not quite that tight, but that general vibe, plank minus like 50%, you should always have like some effort going on in your core while you're pedaling, and that's going to help keep you more upright, take some of that pressure off. Pilates is a great kind of way of exploring that a little bit, I find, and plus it's just fantastic in general. And yoga. Okay, so this is another great bike fit question I just got. You can also go in the Q&A section to ask a question. And this one was just with weight gain. Thank you, COVID. Yep. Should I be getting a new bike fit? Fantastic question. This is also totally the same question applies if you've had weight loss, if you've been pregnant, if you've suddenly taken up yoga or Pilates and have been doing it for like a year and suddenly you're significantly more flexible. Our bodies are not static. Heck, even if it's just been a few years since you got a bike fit and things just don't feel as comfortable anymore, we change. We are humans. We are changing constantly. If you've gained a little weight and the bike fit still feels fine, then by all means, that bike fit is still fantastic. Great. Go ride, be happy. But if suddenly everything's feeling a little bit off, it absolutely could be because with weight gain came some other like side effects. Not necessarily like, oh geez, now I have this like huge belly and I can't like, pedal as well. Although that did affect my dad's bike fit in the past few years, I'm not gonna lie. And that's the same issue with pregnant women. That's why we have to add spacers so they can be more upright and the belly is not, getting pressed in when they're bent over. A little bit of weight gain, probably not a big thing. But if we're talking about, weight gain where, stuff is starting to chafe a bit more because, if our thighs have gotten a little bigger or, we are just kind of like leaning a little more heavily on the handlebars because we aren't as strong as we used to be. If some of that weight gain is like muscle loss plus some fat gain, absolutely that can affect bike fit. So definitely it's always a good idea if things are feeling uncomfortable for, several rides, it's worth kind of checking in on your bike fit. I mean, you can play with it yourself. That's another thing. I mentioned getting a bike fit, but I do think women in particular, we're very nervous about going and getting not going and getting the bike fit. We are all about going and getting the bike fit. We are more than happy to go to someone who's an expert and get them to do a bike fit. We are very tentative when it comes to actually changing the bike stuff on our own. Lowering and raising the saddle, moving the saddle forward and backward, moving the handlebars, even moving the grips on the handlebars, tilting the handlebars up, all that stuff. We get very tentative when it comes to doing that. And I think one of the things I always say in these talks is just like, just experiment a little bit, but especially even before you go in for a professional bike fit, take a week and try a few things on the bike, move the seat forward, move the seat back, move it up and down a little bit, play with where your handlebars are, tilt them around a little bit, see what happens. And that way, at least when you go to get the bike fit, you now have this information. You can go in and you can capably say like, oh yeah, I've tried this. It didn't feel right when I did this. It didn't feel right when I did this. And that way they actually have a lot more information to be working with. So they have like a better starting point, and you'll actually get way more bang for your buck. So before you go in for a bike fit, play with it yourself and see what happens. Worst case, you just set it back to what it was. Electrical tape is your friend here. Just tape the part where it was, move it around. If you don't like it, move it back. Okay. So that's that. All right. Real quick, it's chamois time. So if you have more bike fit questions, please, by all means, keep them coming. I'm going to duck into talking about my favorite topic, though, which is bike shorts. So first of all, the chamois, when we talk about chamois, if you're new to cycling, what we're referring to is just bike shorts in general. If someone says like, oh, I got a new chamois, they just mean they're bike shorts. The chamois itself, though, is actually the padding that's in the bike shorts. And funny enough, you might think it's there to be padding. So you might be looking for like, the more padded, the better. But the original chamois were actually made with, and I'm not making this up, the shorts were made of wool, like not nice soft merino wool like you get from Rafa. We're talking like wool, like the scratchy sweater your grandmother gave you, and deerskin leather as the pad. So we're not designed to be nice and fluffy and springy. They were designed to fight friction. The leather was actually the chamois part, and it was there because it was this material that wouldn't scrape as you moved with it. So unlike the wool. And let me tell you, I got a pair of those shorts off eBay for an article I was working on where I was like trying out wearing like old school cycling kit. They are not comfortable, would not recommend that, but we've come a long way, and bike shorts are the best thing you can buy. However, a lot of bike shops do not have fantastic women's selection. Thankfully, this is changing. There are a lot of great shops in Ontario that now have decent women's selection, but nonetheless, not every shop is carrying the exact right shorts for you. We want shorts that fit comfortably, and ideally, if you're game for it, I am a huge fan of bib shorts. So those are the ones that are like suspenders. They're fantastic for many reasons. Number one being they just don't cut into your gut like regular shorts do. I find bike shorts to be one of the most uncomfortable things in the entire universe, because anytime you're riding, if you think about it, you're wearing them, they tend to have like really tight waists for some reason. Beyond me why companies haven't figured that out. I guess they don't want them to fall down, but nonetheless. So you have this tight waist that's then like jamming right into your gut, right where you're bending over. So talk about difficult to breathe situations and difficult to digest. If you're doing a long ride in bike shorts, oh my gosh, is it uncomfortable? So bib shorts are your best friend. And they now have so many, every company now has a version that you can pee in, because that's a very common question. How do I pee in bib shorts? Good news. Less of an issue now than it was 10 years ago. You do not usually have to take off everything just to take down the bib shorts. A lot of them now have a zip in the back or a pull down in the back, so you can just pee and go, and it's super easy. So try bib shorts. They do not have to be the most expensive brand. There are plenty of brands that are making shorts for around $100 that are absolutely great. It's so worth, though, if you find a pair of good shorts, get a few of them, because they're probably going to change something about them in the next year, and you're not going to like the new ones. Unfortunately, this happens all the time in cycling. It's the same with the saddle, by the way. If you love a saddle, get 2 of them, because they will not have the same one available next year. But with bike shorts, you're better off to have like 2 pairs of fantastic shorts that are super comfortable and feel great than you are to have 10 pairs of mediocre shorts, so you don't have to do laundry as often. Just get the good shorts. This is what I mean when I'm talking about bib shorts, by the way. Just this nice suspender situation. Just the most comfortable things in the universe. And when you're looking at fit, what you want is something that doesn't feel like sausage on your legs. So we don't want that like tight rubber gripping our legs and feeling like it's digging in. You want to be able to take a deep breath and not feel as though you can't breathe. And, the foam padding part should feel comfortable. It should not feel like a diaper. And again, this is going to vary from person to person with which shorts feel the best. So, try on multiple pairs, try riding in them, see what happens. There is a difference between men's and women's chamois, by the way. So unfortunately, if there's a guy's pair on sale, they might not fit you as comfortably as the women's will, and not just because of like actual fit. The chamois itself is shaped differently because it's trying to protect different parts. Easy way to tell if a chamois is men's or women's. A men's chamois, weirdly enough, looks kind of like a vagina, like a drawing of one. Women's shorts tend to actually look more like guy parts. It's because of where our sit bones are and then the narrow channel that we need in front of them. So flip the shorts inside out, take a look at what the chamois looks like, laugh about it. It's hilarious. Some pairs are more apparent than others, but it's always a good time at the bike shop. Usually if I'm doing these talks in real life, everyone runs over to the racks and starts like looking through them, and it's always hilarious when they realize it. Okay, with our bike shorts. No underwear with bike shorts. Couple of reasons for that. None of it has to do with a unsightly panty line or anything like that. We are strictly talking practical reasons. Reason number one, it's wedgie inducing, to be totally honest. It's uncomfortable. It's going to cause some chafing. Usually I have at least one person in these talks. It's like, I wear underwear all the time and it's fine. It might be for now, but without it, you'll be so much happier. You won't have underwear riding up. It won't be chafing. And frankly, the point of the chamois is actually to be in direct contact with your skin. It has an antimicrobial coat. It is literally designed to trap sweat and bacteria. That's what it's there for. It's there to fight friction. When we add underwear, we are introducing a new component to add friction, right? The underwear is creating friction with our skin and with the shorts. The chamois is designed to be direct on skin to avoid friction as you're pedaling. And again, antimicrobial, when we're wearing the underwear, we're completely taking away the point of the chamois, which is trapping that bacteria. And I will get to it in a second, but it is not a great situation when you're sweaty and you bring chamois cream into the mix, or just any level of sweat, mud, wetness, rain, etc. We really just want to keep everything as clean as possible. Underwear just makes that much more difficult. Not a problem that's just women. I actually know a lot of guys who started cycling with boxer shorts under their bike shorts, which just seems completely bizarre to me. But it happens. And again, this is one of those like people just don't get told. There are so many young girls I meet where their dad got them into bikes and they just have no idea. And the dad has no clue that the daughter doesn't know not to wear underwear with the bike shorts. Like it just wouldn't occur to them to tell them. So this is one of those like pass the information on to a friend. If you know a new rider, let them know. Cold weather gear is the other question, which feels hilarious to talk about in June when we're like, yes, finally it's not freezing, but it's a very important question. And actually, this is something that I see as a bit of an issue in the winter. And as we're talking about no underwear, a lot of people will put tights on under their bike shorts. Reverse the process. We want to think if we don't have long tights, or if we don't have long bike shorts, go bike shorts under and then pull tights over. I actually just love a fleece lined either cross country ski tight or run tight. I'll just pull that over my bike shorts. And in most situations, that's totally fine as far as like fat biking or just riding in super cold weather here. If you really want to spend the money, if you're really into riding in cold weather here, there are a lot of brands, Gore, Velocio, Rafa, that make full length, like fully brushed tights. So they're nice and cozy and they're fleece lined and they're so comfy and they're fantastic, but they are pricey. So I always go, like, I'm a bigger fan of layering. And as far as winter jackets go, again, ski clothes are fantastic. If you cross country ski, that stuff is so good on the bike, especially for fat biking where you're more in the woods and you're not trying to be super aerodynamic. But if you are riding, on the road and you don't have cross country ski stuff, a lot of companies are making really nice jackets, but I'm actually a huge fan of just layering things up. So if it's the winter, I'll wear my shorts, a pair of brush tights over them, I'll wear, warm wool socks, my shoes. I have shoe covers that go over my feet. And then on the top, I have sports bra, base layer. And then I'll put on a long sleeve, and it doesn't even have to be a long sleeve jersey. It could be, that's helpful if you want the pockets, but I have a couple of just thick merino wool long sleeves that I'll put on over the base layer. And then over that, I'll either add another jersey, or I'll actually just go with like a cycling raincoat. And I find raincoats, while you do get a little bit sweaty, they tend to be great in pretty much most cold weather conditions. And then they're good for spring and fall. You just take out some of the layers under them. I'm a big fan of not necessarily needing a ton of clothes for the winter. I much prefer to just keep layering things on. And then when it gets warm, start taking them off and packing them away for the summer till I'm down to just shorts and short sleeves. Cycling's already expensive enough without needing to buy a ton of new expensive gear. So hopefully that helped a little bit with that. And then always trying to cover your neck, hopefully covering your face in the winter in Ontario, to be honest, is obviously super, super important. Okay. The other commonly asked question is chamois cream, and the when and the how and the why. So chamois cream is just in to help us fight friction a little bit more. So my rule of thumb is, if you need chamois cream for every ride, you need to change your shorts, your saddle, or your bike fit. It should not be a thing that you need for rides under, say, 90 minutes, unless you're dealing with a bit of like a menopause dryness situation, in which case chamois cream can be super helpful kind of dealing with getting through that. But when we're talking about just normal everyday life, menopause accepted, we shouldn't need chamois cream to like go out for an hour spin. When we do need it though, longer rides, it can be super nice if you have problems with chafing and just general discomfort. We want to put it on the areas that are the most affected. So for women, that tends to be just right on the very inside of our thighs. Sometimes you have a little bit more of like an intimate situation where you have some chafing stuff. Sometimes it's that spot like right under where your leg and your butt meet. All of those little places where you end up with like red marks or chafe spots after rides, that's where you want chamois cream. So you're much better off to put it on your hand and apply directly to your skin, rather than plooping it onto your bike shorts and then hoping you get it up and into the right place when you put the shorts on. So we want to apply directly to our skin. We don't need to use a lot, little bit. We're talking like a quarter size amount should cover any area that needs to be covered. If you put on too much, you're going to end up with what I like to call the slip and slide effect in your bike shorts. So every time you pedal, you're just going to be like sliding over the saddle, which is actually going to be more uncomfortable. You can always tell when someone's put on too much chamois cream when you're riding in a group of people, because you can suddenly start seeing stuff just sort of like splooshing out from the lines of their chamois, like where the pad and the regular material meet. So keep an eye out for that. It's always hilarious. But we don't need much. Little goes a long way. And also, I sometimes get asked about women's chamois creams. The secret is there's not really a difference. It's just like they add some lavender essential oil and call it women's. If you like the smell better, go for it. But really, no major difference. Okay, next question, pad or tampon? Pad, not good. See all of the reasons we talked about for no underwear. Same situation, same issue, plus just super uncomfortable if it starts moving around, which it will when you get sweaty. Those do not stick very well to chamois. Trust me, been there, done that. Tampon is our best bet, or a Diva cup if that's something you're into. Diva cup, menstrual cup, whatever it's called up here. Those are absolutely great. Tampons are great. The one thing with tampons quickly is that you want to make sure that the string is tucked up and away. Sometimes I've heard women with issues from the string sort of being in the wrong place and just kind of causing some chafing problems. Weird, but let's try to avoid that one. It's just up and out of the way. Okay, that's my word on that. And like I said before, experiment, adjust. You have the right to be comfortable on your bike. It is important to be comfortable on your bike. And we can take some of the responsibility on ourselves and actually keep trying and testing these little things. Try your next ride with a saddle that you borrow from a friend to see if it works for you. Try moving where your brake levers are. Try raising your seat or dropping your seat. Give these things a try, assess. adjust again. You might need to adjust a few times. And again, worst case scenario, you at least now have all of the information that you can then take to a professional bike fit and say, I've tried these things and they didn't work. Standing up is the other amazing way to keep ourselves much more comfortable on the bike. And if you are someone who came to cycling, especially, in the past 2 years with a lot of riding on Zwift on your trainer, this is probably something that you haven't done a lot of. Most people think of standing up as the thing that you have to do when you're climbing a hill or you're trying to sprint somebody. But standing up regularly, like every few minutes on the bike, is not just great for, putting out more power. It's also fantastic for your comfort. Think about it. When you stand up, first of all, you're increasing blood flow. So if you have any issues with numbness, whether we're talking about numbness in our lady parts or numbness in our hands, standing up completely changes the way we're sitting. It lets blood flow get back into those parts. So we're addressing numbness. We're also, as we sit back down, we're just naturally not sitting back down in the exact same place, right? We're sitting back down with these little tiny micro adjustments. We've maybe shifted a millimeter to our left or to our right or back or forward. Either way, we're just not sitting down the exact same way we stood up, which means that those tissues that we're starting to get a little bit chafy or, maybe like a saddle sore cut or something is starting to form, you're not sitting right back down on that part. So you've readjusted. So you're actually going to avoid having that chafing issue in that exact spot. So it is just the most helpful thing you can do. It just takes a couple of pedal strokes just every few minutes. I know a lot of people now are setting timers on their computers to warn them when they need to take a snack. I also have one set to tell me when to stand. So every 5 minutes, I'm up and standing. Same applies for if you're on your trainer, your mountain bike, your gravel bike, your road bike, even your TT bike. You can at least, even if you're not going to get out of our arrow position on your TT bike, you can at least just lift your butt up like half an inch. Or even just unweight it. You don't even have to fully stand up. Just lift some of the weight off of it, right? Like I am not standing up as I do this. I'm just shifting. After our ride, take off your shorts, especially if it's a group ride where you're driving home for an hour. You do not want to be in those sweaty shorts. I know it's so tempting. I'm so guilty of this, to come home and first you go in the fridge, you maybe have a couple bites of something, you maybe start your food, then you check your phone, and now you're in your emails, and now I got to answer this text, I got to check this Instagram, I got to answer this email. And the next thing you know, you're sitting in your sweaty kit for 2 hours. This is how we end up with saddle sores. Basically, the more time we're spending in our kit, the more time we're spending in this microbiome that's now attached to us. A few years back, I had a bio student do an experiment for me where he did a scraping of a chamois after a ride and put it in a petri dish and just left it under a warm lamp and timed how it looked. Oh my gosh, it's an ecosystem. You do not want that, especially if you have been sweating a lot, if you've been through mud on the ride, if you've used chamois cream, if you have your period, any of those things, we're just adding more fuel to this fire. So if you're prone to UTIs, if you're prone to saddle sores, just get out of your shorts and get clean. This can be a quick wipe if you're in a parking lot. I'm a big fan of just throwing on a maxi dress and using a baby wipe, and we're good to go. If you're home, shower. We don't need any fancy soap, just plain old soap. We don't need anything too aggressive, but just getting nice and clean. So helpful for preventing saddle sores. And on the note of saddle sores, skin issues, rashes. Ooh. These are sort of our common, I've been on the bike for a few hours and now, I'm having this saddle sore. And saddle sores, we're just talking about basically small pimples, small boils, basically just little spots that hurt when you press them. They're usually red, they're usually raised. The good news is when you have a saddle sore, if you just leave it alone, keep the area cool and dry and clean, and just take a couple of days off the bike, they'll usually go down on their own. What we don't want to do is ignore one and keep riding. If it gets infected, you're now off the bike for a month. So let's just take the day off and let them heal themselves. Your body is good at doing that. It wants to do that. Just let it. Clean, aerated, cool, you're good. Skin issues like rashes, part of it comes down to that bike fit, that friction, that chafing. Another part of it comes down to our laundry. Cycling is an interesting sport. It's the only sport I can think of, other than I guess maybe swimming, because in swimming we're in the chlorine and immersed in it the whole time. But cycling, you're in close contact with your shorts, right? Like we're pressing into our shorts. We're pedaling and our thighs are rubbing our saddle and our shorts are just getting pressed into our skin and we're sweating. This creates a very intimate relationship with your shorts, like you have in no other sport. And because of that, if you happen to be someone with sensitive skin, no matter how clean your shorts are, your laundry detergent might actually be a bit of your issue, which is why I always talk about laundry in these talks, which sounds really weird, but a lot of the time, someone who can get by with regular detergent for everyday life actually is miserable on the bike and is just getting these horrible rashes on their thighs or on their butts because their laundry detergent is, super scented, has dyes in it, just all of these little skin irritants. So if you are someone who's prone to irritation that feels a lot like prickly heat rash kind of thing, try just switching to a detergent that's unscented and dye-free. It may make a world of difference. It's incredible how big of a change that's made for a few people I know, and I'll include myself in that group. I now use unscented, or dye-free detergent. I double rinse my shorts. I double rinse everything just to get it all out, because I don't know if anyone's been on a ride with a group and it started raining and you can tell who added maybe a little too much detergent to their laundry because their clothes just start sudsing. So you get bubbles coming out of their butt. It's a really good look. Look for it next time you're out in the rain with a group. Almost always there's at least someone in the group that has that happen. So we want to double rinse. We want our dye-free detergent. And to be honest, I have reviewed, I think, almost every brand of shorts and jerseys that exist right now, every popular brand for sure. And I will tell you that I have put every single pair of bib shorts I've ever owned through the dryer, and I have not lost a single pair of bib shorts because of it, or felt like I've, cut the life of my shorts short because of it. So I honestly say go for it in the dryer. The nice thing with the dryer is that heat actually helps kill any extra bacteria that didn't come out, especially if you wash on cool or even just warm water and you don't use hot water. That extra heat in the dryer is going to be super helpful. If you do line dry them though, dry them out in the sunshine, even just for a few minutes, even if it's not the entire time, because that UV light is going to help kill the rest of the bacteria. What we really want to do is just kill that bacteria. We want to make sure our chamois are actually dry. If your dryer is a little iffy, make sure that those chamois get dry. The worst thing you can do is put on a warm, damp chamois. You're just starting from Petri dish territory already. That's just where you're going to have so many more irritations and potential for saddle sores. And last thing about laundry. Now I've lost my train of thought. Just don't be afraid to actually treat your kit like normal wash. It can go in laundry. It's fine. When we do wash our shorts though, this is the last thing. We want to wash them inside out. I know when it's muddy out, it's really tempting to wash them, obviously with the muddy side facing you. If you are muddy, rinse them off in the shower or rinse them off with the hose, but then turn those suckers inside out when you put them in the laundry, especially if you don't have a great washing machine. Because a lot of times if we wash them when they're not inside out, the chamois just gets smushed together. And then it spins around with all the other clothes in there and the chamois never actually gets clean. So always take a look at your chamois when you're done with the laundry and just see, does it actually look like it's clean? Does it smell like it's clean? Because we really don't want to start with that part of our kit dirty. All right. And last thing, quick word on honesty. I sort of said this when I was talking about bike fit and telling the bike fitter when something doesn't feel comfortable, even if they're telling you this must feel more comfortable, right? We want to be honest at all times. When we're at the bike shop and we're trying out the new shorts or we're trying the new bike, I know right now it's so hard to find bikes in general. So it's hard to be this bike doesn't seem like it's for me. But if you're on the bike, if you're demoing it and it doesn't feel good, don't feel obligated to buy it. The same is true when you're trying on shorts or jerseys or any of that stuff. If you try it and it doesn't feel good, you don't need to buy it. it is so much better to just be honest and say, this is not for me, than to go off and be uncomfortable. Same is true, being honest with your coach about if something is not super comfortable. One thing, my husband, who's a cycling coach, the past few years, he's had a lot of talks about periods and menopause with the women he coaches. And, the conversation is really just that that's helpful information for him when it comes to actually programming. If you're going through menopause, like there's different things that he's going to be doing. If you have like vicious cramps during your period, that's going to change how he's going to structure your training. So if you are working with a coach, telling them that stuff is so helpful for them and so helpful for you. And then last thing is with your doctor, again, this is coming back to women who are hitting that menopause stage, letting a doctor know if you're having dryness issues that are, making the bike really difficult, or, if you're younger and you lose your period and you're training 20 hours a week, that is something your doctor should definitely know about. Same with your coach. So really just making sure that we're sharing this information. I know sometimes women in particular, I feel this way myself, we struggle to see ourselves as athletes, whether we ride 5 hours, whether we ride, 2 hours a week, or we ride 20 hours a week. We are still athletes who deserve to have a nice, comfortable, happy ride. And a lot of the time we almost like shoot ourselves in the foot because we're just trying so hard to, not bother a coach, not bother a doctor, not annoy the guy in the bike shop, but we really need to advocate for ourselves. So I realize this is like a very odd talk to suddenly go into like, we need to advocate for ourselves as women, but that's where I'm going to end it, because I think that's just so important. And that's like such a huge part of what makes us find that comfort on the bike. So advocate for yourself. It will do a world of good. So that's sort of all I've got for that. I have a couple questions here I'm going to answer. The one is recommending exercises for women who bike long distances. Great question. In this case, I'm a big fan of, you don't necessarily need a lot of like, obviously like strength or like cross training type stuff, but what you really could use is a bit of that core stability, a bit of that mobility. So I'm a huge fan of just like doing a 15-minute like yoga plus core work flow in the morning. I talk about it ad nauseum. And I think for riders who are going long, that's the best kind of bang for your buck, is that 10 minutes in the morning kind of thing that gives you a little bit of strength, a little bit of mobility, a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of core work where we're doing some planks, we're flowing through some sun salutations. We're making sure we're opening up our shoulders, we're undoing some of the thing, we're like this on the bike and then we're like this at the keyboard all day. So we're really trying to open everything up, get everything back to base here, and just making sure that stays open and strong. Then working our core a little bit with some planks, like all that kind of stuff. It doesn't take much to kind of put yourself in a good position. When you're on the bike for long hours, you don't really have the extra time to add in a ton of stuff, but that little bit of yoga core, super helpful. And I will say, if you go to just consummateathlete.com and just search morning yoga, I have a couple of routines that I do every morning that I think are super helpful and kind of contain all of those components. Okay. So we have another anonymous question. I love it. Okay. Bucked. Oh, yikes. Okay, this is a good one. So we have, I ride mountain bikes on a couple of occasions. I've been bucked off the saddle on rocky, rooty climbs. The forces involved causes a labia tear. Oof, ouch. Thankfully, bleeding was minimal, healed quickly. Wondering if any other ladies have experienced this. I can definitely tell you that I know that this is not an uncommon issue. I have absolutely heard about this kind of thing happening. So, I won't force a show of hands or anything, but you are definitely not alone. In this case, I would really kind of advocate for the standing up, though. I think that's a big helpful thing, is just getting better at kind of being a bit more like hovered over the saddle, especially when approaching anything rocky or rooty. And I'm not riding with you, so I can't totally say that this is at all the case. But when you're riding, just trying to have like the least amount of pressure on that, being away from the saddle, because a lot of that kind of issue is probably coming from like, the bucking. So we're like hitting the saddle. If we can just kind of avoid that part, then we might be a little less inclined to have any tearing. But ouch, my sympathies, and no, you are not alone. And our last thing here is just any tips for nutrition on the bike and off. And actually, I'm going to say Ann Guzman is either doing or has done a panel for this week, actually, where she's talking all about cycling nutrition. Maybe one of the panelists can jump into the chat. Doing. Okay, perfect. Beatrice, can you maybe share the when and where of that? Anne is an amazing resource for cycling nutrition. Highly recommend. I would definitely check out her talk. And I mean, I know like this one, even if you can't make it, it's going to be recorded. So that one is going to be absolutely fabulous to go to. She's my go-to person whenever I have questions about cycling nutrition. We've had her on our podcast a few times as well, talking about cycling nutrition. So you can absolutely, check that out to see if you want to hear her chat. But I would say definitely hit that one up. That one is Saturday, 2 to 3 p.m. So absolutely make time for that, and it'll be recorded. Oh, perfect. Where will this recording be shared? I think the OCA should have it on their YouTube channel, and maybe we can get Beatrice to maybe send the link to everyone when it comes out, so that way they can maybe share with anyone who wasn't here, or maybe just if you have a cyclist who's new in your life, and you maybe just send this to them instead of having to have the awkward chat. You just let me do it. Oh, perfect. And Beatrice just dropped in the chat to share just the whole link to everything that's happening this week. So many good things. Cool. Well, we have a couple minutes left if anyone has any other questions. But otherwise, I'm just going to say thank you all so much for hanging out. I know, I know as we were kind of chatting about in the beginning, as we got rolling, everybody's busy right now. I know parents are crazed with hockey games and tournaments and everything else that's happening. So thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me tonight. And, I hope to see a lot of you on the trails at some point soon. Cool. Oh yeah. And if anyone is going to the women's 4-hour at Hardwood on Saturday, definitely come say hi. I will be there. Tell your friends if you know anyone who is going to be there, tell them to come say hi to me, because I get really shy at those events, and it'd be great to have have some people around. And props to anyone who's working the election this weekend. You're doing awesome work. Cool. All right, I'm going to stop the share here, and let's let everyone get on with their evenings. Again, thank you so much to all of you for hanging out. Thank you so much to the OCA for, caring enough about women's cycling to put this on and putting on such an awesome week with so many really cool events and so many really cool women. I hope to see you all soon. So yeah, thanks everybody, and see you soon.